Okay, welcome back everyone who had seen the other video. If you haven't seen it, please go and watch the first video. It's a Western science-based video. This is a secret science video. Alert, alert, secret science video. We're going to talk about the fire element. It came up because, I have a number of patients. They come to me because they've already been to everyone, right? They may have even been to alternative cancer centers. They've been everywhere. They have nowhere else to go. Without the Chinese medicine and the way that I practice it in particular, they wouldn't have any hope. And that's a bit of a burden for me, but at the same time, it's one that it affords me the opportunity to practice the supreme science, the secret science, and occasionally the sacred sciences. Now, enumerating those different sciences into the different things can take all day. Let's just skip to talking about the metaphysical discussion about fire. I've put in another video elsewhere the particulars of the fire element and what it means. Let's recall that the fire trigram belongs to the law of yin-yang, which is the Tai Chi. So right away we're talking about the supreme science because Tai means supreme. Now, what's the secret science is when we dive into what is going on in the law of polarity. There's so much because you have the different sub-laws to the law of polarity, right? Infinitely divisible, mutually generating, mutually controlling, mutually opposing. There's so many things about the bipolar nature of the universe, whether you're juxtaposing the male and female, which the extremes of the male and female flip are demonstrated in the Mars or Aries and the Venus or Athena stories. And obviously Athena's sudden flip into a Medusa-like state, reflecting also some tendencies that we see in male and female relationships and the violence of the war god, whether it's Thor or Ares, whatever you want to call them. Obviously, there's Asian names for all these different gods, right? Xuanwu, for example. So, when we look at the fire element, we have to really break it down into a science where we are interested in what are we contextually talking about. In this case, again, somebody is asking about transformation for their life, right? And I think the way that the question was posed is like, what kind of breathing should I do? Well, there's different types of breathing. Obviously, there's wind and water breathing and fire breathing. But even amongst the fire breathing, I realized I had never taught anyone this until she asked that there are different types of fire. So when we take a look at the plasma function, remember that in the five-phase system, the fire phase, the Xing, corresponds to plasma or lightning. And we obviously also have lightning implied in the thunder trigram. So lightning is really important in Chinese cosmology. When we talk about the fire phase in terms of a practical use, we're going to use the colors to break it down. So here's your practical breakdown. You have 7 basic color differentials for imagery use for fire. Red, and these are going up in terms of energy. Red, yellow, orange, the kind of like a blue, purple, gold, and gold white. Now, it's easy to want always purple or gold white, or just gold. Maybe you just love the color of gold, and when you see that in a fire, you go, oh my gosh. But bear in mind that there are different energy arrangements for each one. For example, the gold white one is difficult to generate and is usually short-lived, because by the time you generate it, it burns through the fuel so fast that you have to shift around the logs, and it typically goes away. But you notice, when you have the gold white, you also typically have a little bit of the blue, but not much of the purple. If you have purple, you'll probably have also gold and orange. So the different fires corresponding to different chakras, to different uses for each type of fire. And bear in mind that we're talking still just about true fire and not pathogenic fires. So like not enzymes and inflammation, infection, states of the body that are unhealthy. We're talking about fire phase that is healthy for you in the terms of use for your heart, for your spirit, even love and humor. Fire also corresponds, if you recall, to enlightenment, knowledge, gnosis itself. This fire is a type that can be consumed. And the desire to consume fire has been with humanity all this time. I mean, there's practices of people, trying to literally put fire down their mouths. Fire is a substance that burns us, right? Plasma is very hot, at least compared to us, right? There's different degrees of plasma, but for us, plasma is very hot. So we have to be very careful indeed in practicing with fire. I'll give you a case, an example. A patient who was a fire type genetically, so redheaded, drier skin, flaring personality, kind of laughs a lot, kind of an awkward laugh. She came to see me, hadn't seen me in a while, and she's a good patient, but she just hadn't seen me in a while. And then she had kind of a burned smell. That's what we call it in Chinese medicine, a burned smell. And she, after I get to needling her, she starts confessing in a way that she had been studying with a new teacher. And this teacher was also very deep in all that fire. This person had practiced Kundalini yoga at one time so extremely that she actually burned her own arms and developed blisters. And so that's an example of inappropriate use of fire. I'll give you an example from my own alchemical practice. At one time I was practicing what I call recycling energy. So I was pulling off charges, ultimately, that's what they come down to, is electrical charges, and recycling them back into the heart to see if I could strengthen the heart power, the duh. Now, this is not the correct method, I'm here to tell you. In fact, I got so built up with energy and so hot and so irritable, but I knew it wasn't anything that my family had done. I said, I pulled up to the house, I said, stay here. I'm going inside. I'll come and get you when I'm ready. And I just went in and I just buried my head in a pillow. And I had to explosively let it out like a volcano. And that's exactly what happens when you have a buildup of heat and pressure like that. You have to let it out. It can either be let out through the skin. You could sweat it out. There's all sorts of ways, right? You can wrestle. You've got to do something, though, to get it out. And so fire is something that's dynamic. We also, in Chinese philosophy, call it the clinging. So fire needs something else. It doesn't exist all by itself, because truly, actually, the fire is an interaction between two things and a change of state. So we use the idea of fire metaphysically to represent, in general, the transformation or the cooking of the medicine, which you could liken to actual just regular cooking of food. You're taking something and you're chemically altering it. Right? And so there's acids and alkali involved, and there's exchange of ions. It's all electromagnetic, right? And so think about the fire element today. Think about the fire trigram and the whole law of polarity, how slippery and difficult it is to truly know where the objective, the subjective leave, where beauty and ugliness are, where right and wrong are. Sometimes those things, they blur. That is all a matter of really, truly discerning fire element and seeing it for its isness, which can be difficult because it is constantly shifting and constantly changing. Without a proper study of the changes, it may be difficult at all to recognize them. And especially it could be difficult to recognize in your movements. So like if you're doing Tai Chi and you tend to be excessive, to know what excessive is. I find people who are excessive, they try to yield and they have to be like weak. Well, weakness is not yielding. Weakness is just weakness. It's just a lack of any kind of power. We don't want that in Tai Chi, for example. Think about that. If you've got questions on the fire element or visualization of those colors using the fire element, then let me know in the comments below. Remember, fire melts metal, perfect for a day like today where there is a lot of stagnation in the nerves. And remember that the fire breathing sounds like this. You have to pump the bellows. That's how you generate the fire. I'll see you next time.